We're live. Here we go.
Oh, well, might as well just, hi guys, this is Maitreya, and I am here with Komplete for our first version of Talkin story. And the purpose of this segment is to really have the discussions that we've all been having, but we just had the thought of sharing this with everyone, ways in which we can overcome anxiety, thoughts, and connection to spirit. So with that, Komplete was going to introduce us into the space with a meditation. And let's do that.
Okay. So I invite you to either lower your eyes or your gaze, close your eyes, and center yourself. Center yourself in your big, beautiful heart space. And I'm going to start with the sound bowls so that we can just focus in this present moment here and now. As you do that, as you breathe into your belly and breathe into yourself, we're just emptying our thoughts and just being present, letting go of anything that doesn't belong in this space, that doesn't bring you peace and tranquility. So if you just breathe in with me through your nose, hold it at the top, and release with a smile from your heart. Take another deep breath in. Hold, release with that smile from the heart. And as you're centering in this moment, I'm going to play the bowls for you. If you just focus on the sounds, focus on the flow, imagine that you are just ebbing and flowing in this moment as you connect to both of us, as you connect to infinite source, Mother Nature, Mother Earth, and all of the beautiful spirit beings around us, all those beautiful healing and nurturing energies around us. Take a deep breath in. Hold and surrender in this moment. Namaste.
Thank you. That was amazing. I found that when you start getting thoughts arising in your head, the sound actually does something. It almost like it just unlatches the thoughts, and it just brings you centered and calm. Yeah. All right. So let's just we thought we would bring up some quotes for discussion, and I invite the audience to interact with us. If there's any questions that you might have, anything that you're struggling with at the moment, if you've got any anxiety or stress that you're finding challenges in dealing with, then please, I welcome you to the space and share what your experiences are, because that's what we're here to do, is to offer our support and to do this together. Because what, in my experience, life is certainly is amazing, but it's also it can be quite difficult to navigate through, especially during a time where a lot of us in the world are trying to find ourselves. So this is the quote that I've come up with today, and this is something that I share quite frequently. I share quotes on my Facebook page, and this one in particular: being positive doesn't mean you don't ever have negative thoughts. It means you don't let those thoughts control your life. And before I share my thoughts on that, Complete, what's how do you deal with stress? What are some ways that that help you get through all of the tumultuous thoughts that can be overwhelming?
Yeah, it's funny because before this call, or this morning, I was actually feeling quite anxious. I was feeling quite stressed, and it was quite visible to my family, which was unusual. But I feel that I was feeling into other energies that were around me, and maybe news that was coming in. So what I had to do then is just be able to breathe, use some of my essential oils I have. Yeah, so I
Same
use
here.
my
I do
essential.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've got my amethyst here, and it's taking that moment. It's taking that moment to center yourself. It's just taking that moment to breathe. And I do a lot of breath work, especially when I am feeling anxious. And people say,
Yeah.
"Oh,
Yeah.
you're the meditation practitioner, and how come you're feeling anxious?" Well, we're all human. So I just practice what I preach, or practice what I do, and just take that moment to breathe. And as we did at the beginning, when we just kind of just, I mean, we don't even realize the importance of the breath. Not, we might go through the day breathing shallow and realizing we're not even breathing properly, but just to actually take that breath in, to
Yeah.
recognize that we are powerful with the breath. So that's what I do. Breathe in,
Yeah.
I hold it, I acknowledge it. I actually imagine as I'm breathing, I'm connecting to Mother Earth, I'm connecting to God's source. And as I'm breathing, I'm imagining whatever color comes up from me, it's filling my whole body, it's going to my fingertips, I'm dispersing it from my heart, from my
Wow.
belly. It's connecting to my head, flowing out over me and around me. So it's just, just bringing in that beautiful, what I call the gift of imagination, the power of imagination, being able to let go, just see and
Yeah.
feel, bringing all of your senses in. And so, as you said, the thoughts that are in your mind dissipated with the sound. So that's a beautiful sensory thing to do.
Yeah.
Listen to some music, meditation music. Listen to something that's going to bring that peace and tranquility to you.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a long answer, right?
No, it's brilliant. Yeah, there's a lot of things that we can talk about here. Talking story. And yeah, uh, yeah,
We
there's a
could just
lot of,
laugh all session.
we could
That's
just
also
laugh all
another.
session. Yeah,
That's also another release.
it is.
Is being
Yeah, I
able to
love
laugh.
laughing. um, yeah, because you and me, we can tend to go into really deep conversations, and sometimes that going deep actually transcends, or it goes beyond even conversation, right? Um, and yeah, that's something that we should talk about too, um, because there are a lot of things that go on in the space, which you mentioned is like picking up on anxiety. For example, um, there's quite evidently um, a lot of anxiety around the pandemic, something that's just come out of the blue. I mean, not so much now that we're in 2021, uh, but this anxiety has caused people to lose their jobs. It's caused people to have struggles with their income, and yeah, there's also the fear of actually getting sick. Um, and there's people that I know as well that have actually um, been affected by COVID too. Um, so yeah, this is something that a lot of people are dealing with, and I can tend to pick up on certain things, like just from the face of it. Like whenever I used to go to my work, I used to work as a pastoral carer, and um, I would just see the expressions on people's faces, right? And just seeing the expression on a person's face actually generates an emotion in you. Um, it's a very subtle thing, but I like to think that the best way to shift energy is actually to express love and light, like exude it through your being. um, and that's like laughter, even just having a compassionate heart, being understanding, and and that's contagious as well. um, yeah, what are your thoughts, Complete?
So my thoughts, because I've been working with a lot of people over lockdown, especially those who are going through anxiety, job loss, and uncertainty. Um, what I've encouraged them to do is to look at the aspects of the fear, not to suppress the fear, to actually look at it. What is it that's coming up for them? Is it a matter of they feel failure, or they're fearful of not being the same after the pandemic? They're scared of the unknown. And what I point out to them is we can only control, and I don't like to use the word control. We can only be aware of what we do, rather than or controlling the external. We have no. It's like, to me, it's fruitless trying to control things that are outside of our remit. We can't control what the government are going to do, even with our voting.
Yeah.
Our vote is one of how many millions. So
Right.
we might put a certain amount of expectation into something that we have no control of. So what I encourage people to do is to be the best that they can be. How do they respond to it? How can they let go? How can they just surrender at that time, and just allow things to play out? Yeah. So what I found that people were doing, well, if people were bulk buying,
Mm-hmm.
but if because they're reacting to a frenzy or something's happening, but we sat back, and it's just like everything was okay. Everything was
Yeah.
just as is. I'm not negating those people who became ill, or who lost people, or I'm not negating that at all. But what I found, I'll give an example. When the first lockdown came into play, I was actually away, and I
Mm-hmm.
was away in the Caribbean, and I found myself picking up on people's fear. And so I couldn't cough, because if you cough, you're sick. Um, you couldn't sneeze, you couldn't do anything. But when we wake up in the morning, what do? We clear our throats. We, you
Yeah.
know, we, you know, we want to kind of breathe out, express ourselves. But because we were suppressing all that, that starts building up, and you then become ill.
Does, yeah.
You then become
Yeah. Yeah.
erratic and whatever. And I found
Mm.
myself one morning panicking because I couldn't breathe. And I was thinking, oh my God, what's happening? And then I
Yeah.
realized that I was just picking up on everybody else's energy. I then decided I'm going to be able to cough. I'm going to do what I need to do, because it's the human thing to do. That's a bodily function, rather than trying to suppress it and not be singled out. I am just coughing. Do you know what I mean? So it's we move
That's
away from the
interesting.
natural,
Yeah.
yeah, because of the fear. So if
Yeah.
we can just be ourselves in the moment, understand what's happening in our body, and to be calm, then you'll find that everything will be easy. Everything will just be in flow. I hope
So,
that I hope that makes sense.
yeah, it does. And so this is what interests me is you mentioned like picking up on energy. Um, like what do you mean by one energy, and how is this picked up? Is this is something that we all experience, um, or is it just people that are more sensitive uh, to emotion? Um, could you expand on that?
It's funny you should ask me that, because I never thought of it that way. So spiritually, we could be more sensitive in picking up other people's energies, yeah, but there are a lot of people who are in this world who are picking up on the collective, and not realize that they're responding to
Yeah,
maybe a picture or a news
that's
flash.
me.
they're,
Yeah,
buy, they're buying into something. So
yeah.
throughout the pandemic, I decided I wasn't going to watch the news. I wasn't going to feed into all the conspiracy theory and all of that. I was just going to be myself and connect, and use my intuition, my heart, to make decisions for myself. Is this right? We all know, we all have that power. We all have that power of connection with God, infinite source, however you refer to that
Right.
infinite. We have the
Yeah.
power, but it's about being still and actually feeling into it, and connecting with it. And we often hear the messages, that small voice inside saying, it's
Hmm.
okay, it will be well,
Yeah.
be at peace. And quite
Yes.
often quite often not when we do surrender in that moment, we realize, oh my gosh, it wasn't as bad as I thought, or I can actually get through this. I can actually make more informed decisions from that place, rather than being in that erratic and over emotional
Mm.
state where you're not seeing anything. You just blinkered. When you're just
Yes. Yeah.
when you center yourself, you're just, everything flows in, all the ideas.
Yeah. 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 I think that's termed as well. I term that channeling. You
Mm,
know? Yeah. I have my own methods of dealing with of energy too. Um, and one of those ways is actually just the practice of observing the thoughts.
mm,
Um, because in my experience, like just as you said, like I feel overly sensitive to energy. For example, like if something, I don't watch the news so much, but it's almost like, you know, on a particular day, I'll wake up and I'll feel that something's happening, right? And it turns out that, yeah, there's some news event or something that's happened, and um, and how I feel that is, you know, I don't know how exactly, but you know, there must be something that I'm picking up through the ether. But also, like, you know, I live with family that are also affected by, you know, just by going out and interacting and having those discussions, what's going on, you know, just talking down at the news agency, you know, and then you know, I'll feel that too, you know, that discussion just comes up, and so it's sort of inescapable. You can't escape. You know, if something's happening in the world, it literally does affect everyone. So I would really feel so much overwhelm, because what would happen to me physically is, one, I would actually have physical symptoms in my body. And this is really interesting, right? Because I'm a pretty healthy guy. I haven't been to the doctor for anything serious since it's been about 20 years. You know, since I actually went to hospital, and as a patient, and yet I would feel the sense of the physical sensation of needing to cough whenever I hear another person who's coughing, or another person that is in fear. And I don't know how to exactly explain that. You can't explain it, but I actually feel the sensation, like even in my throat, it starts to itch. And there are other things as well, like I'll actually get headaches if a person is heavily in their thoughts, you know, and so these things actually taught me to, I needed to find a way, because you can get so lost in your thoughts that you sort of give your power away to it, and then you feel like there's no way out, which happens to a lot of people, and it also happened to me. And then and actually the lockdown period was a time for me to actually self-introspect and develop skills to navigate through that, which I feel is divinely orchestrated as well. You know, that's what I think is actually happening, is, you know, we're being called to really understand who we are, what we're doing here. And really, yeah, that's what I discovered is actually, you know, whatever my thoughts are, is not who I think I am. The thoughts that I consume in my mind are not necessarily mine. So why would I even bother to identify myself with those thoughts? And the more that I understood that, and I would look at those thoughts in my mind, I would just see those thoughts are just are there, and I don't create a story around it. And some of these thoughts are really, this is the thing about thoughts, is with a thought, it evokes a feeling as well. And when that thought has a strong feeling attached to it, it can really pull you. It's like it draws you, right? It like it says it's sort of like it entraps you, right? And so I would and I would play into it, you know, like because I got family members, especially yeah, and again, there's so many, so many discussions that we can go into with this as well. Things like familial healing, things that are carried on generationally. But for me personally, family members coming from trauma from their earlier years in another country, all of that, especially when you're born into whatever circumstances you're born into, whatever family you're born into certain emotions, themes that that is a cause of anxiety, which, to my understanding, all of us on the planet is doing. Each of us carry some kind of template of trauma that needs to be seen and resolved, or dissipated, healed in some way. Yeah.
There's two things as you're speaking. There's two things that I wanted to share, and the one about the thoughts. There's something happening within our family, and it was like kind of causing anxiety. And I was having a conversation with my mother, and she straight away she's going to the bad side. This must be a bad thing, but hopefully it'll be a good thing. And I'm like, well, why don't we just see it as a thing? When we see something as, oh, it's got to be good, we're placing expectations on that. And when that thing doesn't pan out or doesn't appear to be what we perceived it to be, then we're going to be feeling anxious or sad or disappointed about it. Then when we go to the negative side, oh, it's just all bad, it's always happening to me, that's when we're inviting then that negative energy. So I said to her, it is just a thing. We don't know what it is until it actually plays out. Yeah, you are not there. You can't control the situation. So you are then causing yourself that anxiety of the toing and throwing of being between good and bad. It just is. It just is. And the other thing I wanted to bring into space here is working with some clients, right? And there's this familiar theme of, you talked about generational pain, hurt, and trauma. And quite often people, either it's the parent is trying to live their life through the child because of things that they've missed out on, and so they project on the child. Or if the parent hasn't lived the life they wanted to, and the child sees that, they feel that they feel responsible for their parent, and so they start acting like the parent. How
Yeah.
can I live a better life than them? This is what we're used to doing. So I quite often say to my clients, you are not that person, you are yourself. Know who you are, discover who you are, yeah, and face those fears and understand that sometimes the things that you're carrying is something brought down through culture or through the fears of your parents. you know um Typically, when we were talking about how life used to be for us, we would be able to play in the streets, and you'd be able to get a list from someone, or there was no kind of foul play happening. Everybody was just open, like, um, and I'm talking about back in the 70s and
Mm-hmm.
80s. But now people will say, you can't do this, you can't be free, you're restricted because there's so much badness in the world. But what
Yeah.
I've noticed is that those who focus on the badness is what they're bringing into their life. Those who are free and happy-go-lucky, and in flow, they then exude that energy. So that
Yes.
energy of peace, love, you know what I mean, and freedom and expression, rather than the victim mentality, or everything is scary.
Yeah.
Does that, yeah, that makes sense?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, and like what was coming to me was, it comes back to that groundedness being being really like, I would say it's actually like, for me, it's actually being an anchor, like just having that strong, unwavering connection to your inner self, to make it unshakable. That is the test. And life will continuously keep testing, to see how strong you are, or how strong your will is to withstand it, which is totally scary for me. But I think that's the journey of life. I'm just seeing some comments here.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the difference between depth and the surface? Depth and the surface. Um. Hmm. Okay, that's a pretty good question. What
Well,
are your thoughts, Complete?
so
Yeah.
my thoughts are, with the depth and surface, again, is being able to be free to go in to explore. So we talk about the shadow and the light side, and people like want to suppress like those bad thoughts of jealousy, anger, resentment, and they just want to be positive all the time. But in life, you've always got the light and the dark. There's got to be balance in your life, and the more that you suppress those the dark sides, the more it's going to kind of come to the surface. So being able to go in deep and
Right.
find those feelings, understand why you're feeling maybe jealous or angry,
Right.
without fear, and
Yes.
acknowledging
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
So that's about going deep. So when you're
Yeah.
doing trauma work, people say, well, if you keep talking about your trauma and reliving it, you're not going to heal from it. But it's about how you're holding space in there, how you're acknowledging, realizing that you are no longer that person. Every day we change. Every day
Yeah.
we're a different person. We were different before we even started this call, because we're having new thoughts, having new feelings, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
someone listening to us now will be like, aha moment, they're not the
Mm-hmm.
same person that
Right.
who's before. So it's about going in without fear. That's the depth. The surface is like maybe not wanting to explore, that
Mm-hmm.
fear, everything is okay. As I said, suppressing it, I'm
Yeah.
just going to
Yeah.
be positive, or I'm just going to be negative. There's those, I have people who don't know how to be positive, and to be negative is what feels comfortable for them, because they're not taking responsibility then. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I
Right.
believe
That's
depth is
brilliant. Yeah.
depth
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
about taking responsibility,
Yes.
taking
Yeah. Yeah.
responsibility for yourself, taking responsibility for expanding and learning.
Wow. Yeah. And yeah. For me, it's there's all of these things, that is ingrained in the subconscious. It's there and it's unseen, and it's like you said, like, unless you're willing to actually, um, allow yourself to experience it, to see it, it becomes suppressed. I think this is what, we all do in some way, and it's hard actually, because nobody wants to, relive, uh, experiences that have been hurtful. Yeah. But that is this is what you said, is, it has to be released. It's like, like a corkscrew bottle that, it just builds up, and if you don't release it, it's gonna cause a lot of destruction.
Yeah. And
um
same thing with
yeah.
grief. With grief, people think that I can't cry. But cry is the most healing thing you can do. When you start
Yes.
crying,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then you feel that ease, you feel that pain dissipate, because the tears, um are releasing. And as you know, there's the saying is there's 38 toxins in each tear. So when you're crying, you're detoxing as well, right? So just to let you know that, don't hold back the tears. Just
Yeah.
be free to express, because when you hold it in, that's when you start getting those physical ailments. I know from personal experience of suppressing some trauma that I've been through. It then culminated into disabilities, losing my sight, becoming unable to walk because of the tension and the what can I call it, tension and the trauma in my back and my body and my
Right.
nervous system. So it's all built up, and
Yes. Yeah.
that's what happens. So you'll find that they often talk about certain diseases are related to, like cancers related to bone cancers related to resentment.
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, with the throat, when your throat starts hurting you, you know, like, what am I not speaking my truth? What do I need to speak out? When
Yeah.
your ears start hurting you, it's like, I don't want to hear that, I'm blocking out the sound, you know. So it's
Right.
about realizing also what is happening to your body physically as well as spiritually.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
just think I just seen the other questions here.
Mm-hmm.
With from Steve, it says, "What how do we develop the ability to feel and to become more intuitive?" My
Okay.
big word there is trust.
Right. Trust what?
Trust, just trust that I would say this is when we're connecting to source, connecting to God. Whether you know what if you're religious or you pray, you're connecting with faith and trust. You're letting go, you're surrendering. And when you do that and you're in the stillness, that is when you start maybe hearing the voices. You know, the thoughts come in that are, and you know it's not your anxiety thoughts that are coming in, because you're being still. You're allowing yourself to be open to receive. Does, how's that
Yeah.
going?
Right. Um. Yeah. I think, yeah. This is the thing. It's it's allowing yourself to welcome in something that you're not familiar with. Um, it's always the case. Is if you're not familiar with whatever it is you're feeling or experiencing, um, the reaction, the survival mechanism in us is to block it or to protect ourselves. Um, but really, what I've because this is also something that I've been studying, um, is how do you navigate through this defense mechanism, and is actually the way through anything is to actually is love. And what's love? Love is it's actually, I embrace this. I bring it in and make it a part of me. Uh, yeah.
Oh,
And
you know,
yeah.
yeah. No, you say about love. Yeah, love for self is, it's also being able then to say, I love myself and enough that I feel, I trust that I can stand apart and not have to be part of that whole. I can stand alone and trust my instincts. And I was going to give you an example. Um, how our body speaks to us all the time, and sometimes it's very subtle. Sometimes you could be somewhere and it says, "Don't go down that street. Don't do that." You know,
Right.
what I'm going to say to you is, I remember I was doing a detox, and I was within that detox. I'm looking at the foods I'm eating. I'm eating more greens, staying away from processed foods, that sort of thing. And when I started cooking, and I put something in the pot that I shouldn't put in, yeah, all of a sudden I had a stomach ache, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, why is my stomach hurting? But I was actually speaking to another spiritual sister, and she said to me, when your stomach started hurting, what were you doing? and I was actually pouring in refined pasta into the pot. When I decided, and she said, "Well, you're not supposed to be eating that. Your body's telling."
Wow. I
And
totally get that.
when I
Yeah.
realized and I
Yeah.
didn't have it, and I made the decision that self-love, looking after my body, that sort of thing, the stomach ache went. So it's
Yeah.
simple little things like that that our body is speaking to us and saying, you know, I'm here, listen to me.
Yeah.
I'm with
That's
you.
a real thing. That
Mm,
is, yeah. Um, I don't even know how to describe or explain um, why or how that happens, but I can tell you as well that I totally get what you're saying. It's an intuitive knowing, before something's about to happen, um, or just as simple as that. Like if something's not agreeing with you, you just start to manifest feelings in your body. Um, yeah,
like I've got another one. I'm going to say it's happened
sure.
to me. Yeah, is I was going to visit someone who brings up lot of toxicity. Yeah, and I decided, oh, lockdown has been lifted, and I felt obligated to go. Yeah, and 2 days before that, I started getting a sore throat. I started getting a headache. Then there was pain in my back, and I ignored it. I think it was the what my body was saying to me. We don't want you to be in that energy. We don't want you to be there. I went. It was a traumatic experience.
Hmm.
But when I came back, I then went into meditation, went into doing the breathing and drinking water, and then my body just crashed out. When I woke up, all the symptoms are gone. Again,
Yeah,
speaking to another spiritual person, we were laughing about it. They
mm,
said, you weren't listening to your body. So when you stubbed your toe, she's joking now, she's painting this picture. When you stubbed your toe on the way out, you still didn't listen to the message, like, do not go and visit that person. Yeah. I wasn't listening. But 2 days before that, my whole body was kind of shutting down, saying, no, you don't need that energy in your life.
yeah, yeah.
I can
So that's
imagine how,
self-love. Yeah,
yeah, self love. So I was
yeah,
ignoring that.
yeah. There's a lot of because I call this mastery, right? Mastering your mind, mastering how you navigate through life. And that's the thing, like it's not as dealing with thoughts, stress, anxiety in whatever forms they come in. um, yeah, it's not also as simple as uh, saying love. Like there's prophetic sayings um, about forgiveness, understanding, love, love one another. Uh, but again, like it's not just as simple as that. It's also loving oneself. How can is this right for me? Following your body's intuition. Uh, because again, like this is what I've come to realize is if you don't fulfill yourself, you don't love yourself enough, then how can you hold space? How can you be there for another too? Sometimes, in my family, there's this notion of sacrifice. Um, and what my family tends to do is the need to be there for others at the expense of my own happiness. But actually, energetically, what happens uh, is actually creating uh, more anxiety uh, energetically, and it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, it's like towing the line of loving yourself as well as being there for others, um, and just getting that right, that balance right.
I was going to
Yeah,
say that in order to sometime, no, not sometimes, all the time, until you start practicing and mastering self-love. To master self-love, you have to be courageous in love. You have to be courageous in saying no. So seeing no as a full sentence, yeah, not having to
Wow,
explain, yeah,
that's
not having to
massive.
explain yourself,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
being okay with that no. When you say no to other people, you're saying yes to you. I
Yes,
would
yeah,
often say that self-love is about being self-full, not being selfish. When
yeah.
you are self-full, you allow others to do the same. You give them permission to say no to you or to others. When they start seeing the peace and tranquility that's in your life from saying no or yes to your, let's take the no out of the equation, saying yes to yourself, being courageous
Mm.
enough not to
Yes,
feel
yeah.
obligated like I did. Yeah, I
Right,
felt that.
yeah,
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 it
yeah,
does take courage. It does take courage to love yourself. But once you realize that it's beneficial, the benefits of it, then it's easy to do because you don't have to explain yourself. People will just accept you. Now, I know people or friends, family were like, "Oh, you're different now. I like the way you used to just jump when I said I wanted
yeah,
something." They're not
yeah,
used to that.
right,
Yeah.
right, yeah, yeah,
Also, know that no, yeah, gives them the opportunity. So next opportunity, new opening, like move on somewhere else. All right. So, and it gives
yeah,
them the
yeah,
opportunity to help themselves somewhere else. Sometimes
right, yeah,
we're holding on to people, as you
yeah,
say, your family are serving them. So that thing
yeah,
about teach a man to fish and he'll have food for a
exactly,
lifetime. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
we quite often enable
that's
people
right,
through our
yeah,
obligations.
yes,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
I saw there's a question here. It says,
Hmm.
love, how you share these concepts and relate them to real life experiences. Oh,
But there's a before that. There's a comment here about, would you say generational trauma is passed down merely by thoughts, habits?
yes,
Maybe we can touch on both there. Yeah.
yeah, I will.
Um, yeah, I think you just covered that.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um, yeah. Um, that's actually interesting. I do think that generational trauma is carried through thoughts. It's yeah, it beliefs, um,
which become actions.
which becomes actions and manifests into this world, like into our day-to-day lives.
Mm.
It's yeah, it's actually amazing. Like that's how powerful it is. Just one thought. Um, and what I've also noticed is if you're if you're raised in a circumstance, an environment, that being family, cultural upbringings, your nation, all of that actually, like if I went to America, because I'm in Australia, right? You're in the UK. If I travel to America, or let's not say America, let's say Russia, right? Let's say somewhere that's for me is quite foreign. Um, it's going to be I'm going to notice a lot of things about my environment that I've been brought up in, because I'm not exposed to that thing that you were talking about before, is something that's foreign, that's different from you, and you're not familiar with it, and it's like, what is this, and do I welcome it in? I'm afraid of this because I don't know what it is. um, and you could say that that's integration too. Freedom comes from when you realize that everything is a part of me, because ultimately everything is. um, yeah, so I'm not sure where I was going with this, but yeah, the generational trauma, all of those things, like it, you can get, if you're brought up in a certain way, if you're in an environment for so long, you won't even realize, you don't know what are the patterns that you're playing out unless someone holds the reflection for you, that is not in that same space as you, or you actually physically make the effort of moving out of that environment, out of those circumstances, conditions, whatever it may be, to then have another face of awareness, another way of, another angle of seeing what that is, and then you sort of like, you understand what, what is this pattern that's been playing out in my life. And it's not actually, because this is, again, like, each of us have a certain trait that we're carrying from our families generationally. There's like it's like a lineage. Like, for me, there's, like, immediately there's things around victimhood, with my cultural upbringing. Victimhood, from Sri Lanka, a country where there's discrimination, racism, there's a civil war. My family experienced a lot of that kind of trauma. And when I opened up the history books, to study about, my ethnicity and the what gave rise to those conflicts, is I could see that these things have been happening for centuries. The conflict, and it's all connected. It actually does something that might have happened hundreds of years ago. It's directly connected to what you're experiencing in your circumstances, in your family, in your environment right now. Look at America, with everything that's happening, with everything through, the slave trade, and how Black people are treated. There's, people thought that wasn't an issue anymore, especially when you had a Black president. But it obviously, there was the unhealed wounds there, that when pressure was applied, through, world circumstances, it comes up to the surface, and it needs to. Otherwise, it just gets suppressed. And yeah.
The word fear is coming up for me. The fear of the unknown or the unfamiliar.
Mm-hmm.
Again, when I say that people want to stay in the funk or stay in the negativity, to step out of what they know, the way of life, how it's always been this way, the constitution's been passed down, the even just down to bylaws, even here in England, about the way you can travel on the road, or they are still in place. We are still living by the old rules and the bylaws, and it's time that those sort of things were changed. And it's the fear of, like, well, if we don't stick to what we know or what's been passed down from generations, where are we? And quite often I envision that there's going to be that electrical magnetic field that's going to wipe everything out, where we're all going to have to say, oh my God, we're all at the same stage, we're all going to start again. And can you imagine that happening? Can you imagine that?
Can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. So the world is not how we know it. Even with the pandemic, this has happened, and there's this going the new normal. But to really have everything stripped away from all of us as human beings, not black, white, yellow, green, as human beings, we would have to find a way to survive together. I'm not saying that should happen, by the way. I'm putting a disclaimer there about the electromagnetic field. But if
All
you think
right.
about it, if
Yeah.
it came to that point where we were all stripped and we stripped down to the bare, what, to our hearts,
Right.
to that pure loving energy,
Yeah. Yeah.
that was the only way we could survive, is if we were actually sharing and loving from a place of non-judgment. And we got to find food together. We got to, we got to make this thing work. Can you imagine?
Um. Yeah, I can imagine that. I feel like that's where we're heading at some point. It just seems like that's the way that things are evolving. Uh,
and and I'm going to go back to that question about the trauma. Can it be passed down? We know that when a fetus is in a mother's womb, yeah, if they experience trauma, whether they've doing drugs or they've domestic violence and whatever, that child is going to be affected. And also with that child, if the parent or the mother is not able to show love or to give affection, they're not able to connect with that, to get that bonding, it will affect them throughout the rest of their life. They feel detached, they don't feel that they belong. So it's that initial symbolism of love, nurturing, holding, caressing, and caring that's so important. Yeah, throughout some generations. If you think about going back to the slave trade, yeah,
mhm.
people were people were born and taken away, or children were born and taken away from their parents, yeah,
Yeah.
or displaced and spread throughout the country or wherever it is. There was no connection, so they do feel displaced, they do feel they don't belong. if you
Wow.
look if you look at
Yeah. Yeah.
so if you look at someone that
That's
come from Africa, or from, they come from their line of tradition,
yeah.
and they
Yeah.
understand it, they understand the culture, they feel that they belong, they feel that they fit in. Yeah, but take that away, that's what you get.
That is so true. Wow. Like, because that's the thing, like, I think culture has come in, it's changed in, and I think we're gonna probably wrap this up soon. um but um that's the thing, like, a lot of cultural shifts have happened just in the last 30 years. And like, there's been, I mean, this is just my view, this is my perspective, what I've seen. um is like, it's cool to be black. It's
Mm.
there's the rap era, and all of these like amazing celebrities, and and that's sort of like, there's like a glossing over there, right?
Mm.
um but it's like you said, it's that literal, you know hundreds of years ago, when a child was taken away from their parents, um, against their will, displaced, and now you're saying that actually there's a feeling there that of displacement. That's a real thing. Like,
Mm.
that is directly correlated right there.
If you think of
Um,
the animal
yeah.
kingdom, yeah, if you think about the animal kingdom, so for instance, oh, just a simple thing like, I witnessed the giant turtles giving birth, yeah,
Hmm.
and so it gave birth away from the sea edge, and so the tiny little turtles are trying to get into the sea, and the local says, you cannot help the turtle. If you put your scent on the turtle, or if you break that scent from the mother or whatever, then they may not survive in the sea. Yeah. And I was like,
Right. Wow.
or if you, a bird, or so like a bird, if someone touches a bird or whatever, the scent changes. That, so we're
Right.
connected through the different senses, our body. as well. So that's another one. So the mother,
Yeah,
Mother
yeah.
Earth,
There's so many
Mother
connections.
Nature,
Yeah, yeah,
everything shows us the right way.
yeah. Um, yeah, we just like scratched the surface of how where we can go. So
How
yeah, this
how deep are we gonna go? I wanna know. Are we gonna talk about past life and connecting in the future?
yeah,
I'm
that I
just
mean that
just asking you.
I mean yeah, yeah, I love talking about all of that. And yeah, I find that um what's fascinating about information, it just comes out the more that there's a synergy that takes place,
Mm.
and the information that's encoded in our souls, it just starts to come out freely, and then you just see it and it's like, wow, that's what it is. uh so yeah, we should definitely do this again. um and yeah, this we're gonna do more of this. Yeah, and yeah, this is an open space, so we're gonna do this on a weekly basis, same place, same time. Today I am the host, but
I
I think
can't
we're
hear you.
gonna perhaps rotate or do something of the sort and have different. You can't hear me? No.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Steve can. I can hear you. Yep. I think maybe your phone, might have thing. But yeah, let's wrap this up. Thank you, Complete, for sharing your wisdom. I know. Sharing your wisdom, your time, your energy, and yeah, for those in the audience, if you've got any questions or any comments, please share away. Whether you're on here now or watching the replay. And yeah, we're going to be doing this on a weekly basis and having different people jump on, and we're just going to share our wisdom. And yeah, that's Talkin' Story. Welcome to the first episode of Talking Story. This is exciting what we're creating here. So peace, namaste, lots of love to everyone, and thank you guys for watching.